Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very excited today because we're meeting with Jacqueline Throop Robinson from Sparked Engagement. They help you see your people, and we're going to let Jacqueline tell us a little bit more about that. Jacqueline, can you tell us a little bit about your background and your role at Sparked Engagement, please?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I'm happy to be here. It's great to have been preparing this session with you. You're a lovely, lovely host. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My background, as you can see by the color of my hair, I've been around a while. So I've been working really in business and the HR space for over 30 years. And for about 25 of those years, I have really been working very closely and with researchers, statisticians. I'm a researcher myself to really look at what generates passion in the workplace. And so we built a product around this research, and this is what we have been focusing on for a number of years now. More recently, we have decided to kind of expand the product line. But yes, what we really want to do is be able to help employees create the best possible work experience for themselves. That's our aim with the support of leaders, of course.
I so love it. That's so important for me personally. I will switch jobs just if I'm not happy that way. So I think that's excellent.
More and
Um,
more people actually are taking that view. Especially I feel the younger generations. They're looking a lot more for quality in their work. They're looking for purpose and meaning. And in our research, they want to have impact. They want to make a difference. And it's really important to recognize that and to understand the importance of that. It's still a tendency for leaders to think it's about perks and compensation,
mhm.
but it isn't as much as it maybe it never was, but that belief is still there and it's just doesn't play out in our research.
Absolutely. And that piece you said about generations is so true. My parents don't agree at all. They believe in loyalty. So we always end up sort of arguing when it comes to mom, dad, I think I want to switch jobs. They don't like that discussion.
Well, it's interesting. I'm a baby boomer, and I feel that we were nurtured on the concept of loyalty. Even Gen X has been.
Mm,
We measure loyalty because loyalty is important, but the difference I think today is loyalty is a two-way street.
yeah.
So if you expect loyalty from your employees, then as leaders, as an organization, you need to demonstrate loyalty to them. And we often don't think of it that way. We think of it as a one-way street, but it's actually a two-way street.
You're so right. I love it. It's a fair exchange, right? Yeah,
Exactly.
great. Great, great, great. I love it. Um, can you tell us about Sparked Engagement's values and missions?
Well, I referred to it earlier, and it really is that when we started this work, what we really wanted to do was support individual contributors. So our values are really based in that support. Now, that includes leaders. We often don't think of leaders as individual contributors, but everyone's a person. So our interest is yes, in building culture, yes, in building engagement across a large group of people, but we also really want to personalize it, individualize it, so that each employee, leader, frontline employee, has the opportunity to kind of and the knowledge to create the best possible work experience for themselves and have the organization support that. But I think in some ways our core value is accountability because often people don't recognize the number of choices they have, in terms of how they can co-create their work experience.
Yes.
In the early days of doing leadership retreats and leadership development, and then that kind of moved into employee workshops, we really recognized that people were waiting for managers to fix things, waiting for the organization to get their act together. And employees were often, including managers sometimes, sitting back waiting. And we really wanted to shift that mindset and say, you have a lot of agency here. You have a lot of choices that you could be making day in and day out that make it better for you, more fulfilling for you, better for your peers, and you can help uplift the organization if you see a problem. So, although now, today, we work with executive teams largely, and we also touch other levels of the organization, but we often work top down. The product itself works bottom up. So it really is about co-creating this together. And I think those are a combination of our values and mission. They're sort of intertwined, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, yeah, I absolutely, yeah, it's beautiful. Um, okay, can you tell us about your main product, what you deliver to your client?
So this is interesting because we are a little different in terms of an employee engagement survey. First of all, we're not anonymous. What we are is confidential. So we really take great care with the data. Uh, our clients don't have access to the data, but by being a confidential survey, we allow employees to get their own profiles. So this is at the heart of our mission. We want to make sure that once a survey, an engagement survey is completed, employees can access their results. And what does that mean? Well, one of the beautiful things about research is that you get to gain insight over time. And one of the things we've been able to do is actually diagnose an individual's primary state of engagement. Often people think you're engaged or you're not, but as human beings, we're not light switches.
It's a continuum,
Right?
yeah.
And it's not as straightforward as that. There are different intensities of engagement. And depending what's happening in your work life, even your personal life, it affects how you show up at work from an emotional point of view. And so, what we have discovered is that there are two drivers of high levels of engagement. We call that passion, but it's like a highly engaged person who's really in the flow at work. And that is a high sense of meaning and a high sense of progress. And so the survey helps us diagnose to what extent do people see meaning in their work? To what extent are they getting a sense of progress, impact, forward movement? And then based on that, we can diagnose, are they frustrated? Are they disconnected? Are they quite neutral about things? Or are they passionate? Are they energized? And so the product is structured around that so that we
Mm,
diagnose people's emotional state of engagement. But then we also look at what drives their meaning, what drives their progress, and how can they themselves nurture those drivers of engagement so that they're in the driver's seat, if you see what I mean, rather than, again, going back to waiting for managers to fix things. It's about what are my needs and what actions do I need to take to support that. Now, we also do, team reports, organizational reports, and how I like to explain it is leaders have the responsibility, right? The accountability to help create conditions that are going to make it easier for people to engage. There are things we can do as leaders that really support individuals and teams in accessing their drivers of engagement. So the product is basically a survey, dashboard where you get your individual results and reporting for leaders to help them know what they need to do to sort of uplift engagement in their organization, which leads to clearly leads to bottom line results. And a
mm.
lot of people don't understand how much of a direct connection it is. But we see that every day in the data. Teams that aren't productive become very productive. Organizations that are struggling to have increased their profitability and and can through engagement. And it doesn't cost anything because engagement's not about perks. So I love working in this space because there's just always so much potential.
I think what you do is so important. Yeah, it's wow. I think it's so important for employees. That's awesome, Jacqueline. Can you tell us a story and give us an example that might be tangible for our listeners, just so that they understand a little bit more the value that you deliver to the collective?
Well, the value comes through in different ways, but maybe just to give you a kind of a different type of example. I was working for a multinational insurance company. The financial services sector is one of our main sectors. And so we were working with this multinational insurance company, and we were working in the Caribbean, and they had a leader there who had really invested heavily in engagement. And, that means things like really understanding people's genuine interests, really trying to align their day to day work with their interests, celebrating progress. It's all these kind of things. And he had really developed a lot of practices to do that. His team was doing really well, but he didn't enjoy insurance. So he was really struggling with whether to stay in insurance or to leave. And then he was offered a promotion to Ireland. And he was, well, I just can't take it. I just can't take it. I don't care enough about,
Mm.
insurance is not what jazzes me. That's not really where I go into passion flow. And I said, well, when do you go into passion state? He goes, oh, when I'm working with the team. And this team in Ireland, they're like dysfunctional and it would be so much work. And I went, hello, your
Wow.
passion is in working with teams. Doesn't Ireland sound like the perfect opportunity for you? And he just stood back, and he'd been so focused on the specific type of insurance he was working with that he'd lost sight of what he really loved most. So he ended up taking the promotion and has been with the company ever since, and has really been transforming teams along the way. So, it's important to understand what your real drivers are and not get distracted by things that maybe they matter, but maybe they don't. Sometimes we get hung up on the manager we have or some of the technical duties we have. And sometimes those are really important, by the way, but sometimes they're not. And we have to kind of figure out what really drives our meaning and progress at work. And how do I find work that allows me to experience that? That's just a small example, but it works that way whether you're talking about a team. Teams have common drivers of meaning and passion. And if you can align that, I mean, it's just everyone wants these special work experiences. Everyone, even performers who appear to be resisting, they just don't know how to get what they want. And so they kind of take on resistance. But everyone wants to have a good, positive work experience. No one wants to show up to work and be miserable. No one, it's not in our
Right.
DNA.
That's what I was going to say. We spend most of our days at work, right? We want it to be a beautiful place to be. So,
Yeah,
yeah, that's
yeah,
such a
but people get kind of locked in, managers, leaders, teams, and they just don't know their way out of that. And what is so great about the research is it shows the way out. And I just use that story of the one manager, but there are stories about teams, there are stories about entire organizations. Another one, a European insurance company we work with, the managing director, good guy, but didn't understand that his team needed civilities during the day. So they needed him to acknowledge them when he walked in the office in the morning because his team was really geared to relationship building. That was their core driver of meaning. And when the managing director didn't take opportunities to interact and build relationships, it blocked their engagement. All he changed was just making sure he acknowledged and saw them, interacted with them, did some small chat that was not so much small chat, but learning about them, learning about their lives. That one change transformed the whole organization because he didn't understand the importance of that. It was the survey actually that highlighted it. It was the survey that showed him that relationship building was critical to his team. It wasn't to him. He
yeah.
didn't need it, but his team needed it. And so that's part of the role of a leader too, is to not just do what you need, but to really be sensitive to what are the needs of the people around you.
Wow. So they needed the validity that he cared, it sounds like.
They didn't want to feel anonymous, you
Yes.
know? They wanted to feel like they mattered,
Yeah.
that they had, but they were, people don't want to just have, you know, that sense of belonging without feeling like they can contribute, though. This is the other piece. People need the meaning piece, but they also need to feel like the work they do is making a difference. It's both. Sometimes I think organizations focus too much on one or too much on the other. I was just meeting with an executive vice president this week, and this is an interesting piece. And he is not in the insurance business. He's in a different sector, but he has a country that their engagement scores have plateaued. And he was incredibly surprised because they have, from a revenue point of view, looking at the global company, they've gone from like 25th place to 6th place, right?
Wow.
So he's like, I don't understand. The engagement scores have plateaued. And it was a challenge for him to understand that although to him they've made incredible progress because they had met all their KPIs, they had like blown the revenue out of the water. That doesn't mean that matters to the employees. If they are achieving progress, but in a way that is not fulfilling, in a way that it isn't meaningful, in a way, if you are stressed all the time to hit this KPI, that is not engagement. Like if you are feeling burned out, that's not engagement. So you may get really good results for a while, right? But that doesn't necessarily stimulate passion if you are not attending, to the whole person and to other needs. So it was a bit of a rude awakening, I think, because it turned. This is the thing about leaders. He was all jazzed by this. It meant a lot to him,
Yeah.
but it doesn't mean it means a lot to everyone else. It doesn't mean that people don't care about company performance. They do. Of course they do. Everyone wants to be part of a winning team, but you can't do it at all costs. It has to be done in a way that's sustainable and fulfilling for people.
Yes. Thank you so much for these stories, Jacqueline. They really help us understand. Um, I was wondering, what major shifts or trends are you seeing in your industry at this point in time?
Well, if I come out of the employee engagement space and not even just look at human resources, but go beyond that, I really feel that people currently are just very focused on AI. And I think that is just very reasonable given where we are right now. In some cases, I think companies are trying to look at AI to kind of accelerate them further. Some are looking at it to try to help them leapfrog and catch up in technology, period. So I think everyone's sort of just grappling with how do I use it? How do I invest in it without it becoming something that can also be a distraction, because it's evolving and developing. And so, yeah, that is one of the big trends in HR. It's just starting within the HR space. It's not as, it depends on your company, of course, but I find it's more on in other functions within organizations where it's more a priority. You know, digital transformation, of course, is a piece of that. So I would say for me, those are the biggest trends I'm seeing. But these system changes, and it's not just on regarding AI, just the technology drivers are really a challenge for employees because we're working with a number of banks right now that are changing all their systems, and it's really hard for people not to burn out during those kind of changes, because we focus so much on the technology, we don't probably focus enough on how to help people on that journey and how to stay engaged and how to not burn out, because that is problematic for organizations as well, not just the individual.
Right. Um, is any of this impacting your growth strategy, Jacqueline?
I think what we're doing currently is we've decided not to develop our own AI tool at this moment, but to leverage the existing AI tools, because there's so much out there that we can use. And I think it's very easy to try to change your area of expertise to
Mm-hmm.
accommodate current trends. But
So
our
true.
expertise is we know employee engagement, we know individual passion at work. And there are others out there. We have software developers, of course, but there are developers out there that are highly engaged in AI and are developing wonderful tools that can be used within our business. And so I think it's much smarter for us to learn those tools, embed those tools as a starting point. So it is affecting our growth strategy in the sense that we can't ignore it, and I don't want to ignore it. I think I want to leverage it. You know, it's but what I will say currently for us, we have we are using AI and we are doing outreach using AI, but I still find, you know, the referrals and the conversations with people is still where most of my business comes from. But you know,
Right.
we have both, of course.
Nice. And where do you see sparked engagement in 6 months to a year, Jacqueline?
I think we are really focused right now on just broadening our work in different geographies. So we have worked globally, of course, but because we're based in North America, it's a lot easier for us to work in Europe and North America. We're going to Singapore and Australia, so APAC will be kind of our focus now. So I guess in 6 months, I see us as having, you know, built our partner network in APAC.
Mm, sounds beautiful. Well, I would like to thank you so much for being here. It's been an honor. And before we go, I would like to go over how our listeners can get a hold of you. I forgot to ask you. So, um, sparkedengagement.com.
Yes. So www, of course, Spark, SPARK. There's a hyphen and then engagement.com.
Okay.
And I'm Jacqueline at spark-engagement.com. And LinkedIn, easy to find
Yes.
me. There's no other Throop Robinson in the world. So apart my children and my husband. So
Yeah.
you can easily find me on LinkedIn.
Great. And I would like to point out the age also, just because if someone's searching your profile or whatnot. So, Jacqueline's name is JacquelineThroop Robinson. Thank you. And I
Yes.
was wondering, Jacqueline, in closing, do you have anything, any final words to say to our listeners?
I think what I would say is sometimes it's really easy to stay with what you know because it does take less effort and time initially, whether it be an engagement survey vendor or your technology. But it is so worth it when you look at where are the innovations. It could be in the employee engagement space, it could be in AI, it could be in any, it does, there's no limit. Every space is innovating right now, and it's so easy to stay in your comfort zone and let inertia set in. And as a small business owner, I wouldn't be around 25 years later if I had done that. I wouldn't have been able to keep up with the market. So I just encourage all founders, all leaders, individuals, individual contributors to just lean into the innovations and figure out what works for you. And from a product point of view, don't be afraid to change if you see a better opportunity for yourself, in the sense of how you can make like a work tool for yourself, for your organization. We can get exhausted by change, so we have to be really careful we don't take on more than we have the capacity for. But I find that at this moment in time, being really tuned into innovation is probably the best thing someone can do at an individual level or an organizational level.
Thank you so much for these wise words. As a proponent of growth, I totally agree with you. From a growth mindset, right?
Yes, yeah, for sure. Growth mindset is very important. Well, thank you, Carolyn, for having me on.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline, and have yourself a wonderful day.
Thank you.